Good evening, and welcome to this meeting of the Old Kings Highway Committee of the Town of Yarmouth, which is being held in accordance with Chapter 470 of the Acts of 1973 as amended at 7:15 p.m. on Monday, May 13th, 2024, at the Yarmouth Town Hall Hearing Room located at 1146 Route 28, South Yarmouth. Moreover, pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, considering certain COVID-19 measures, this meeting is being run in hybrid mode, which means live participation, and it's good to see so many of you here tonight. There may be some Zoom participation, conceivably some telephone participation as well. 6 new applications for certificates of appropriateness will be heard this evening in the order listed on the agenda. Please be reminded that our committee's main purpose is to review items for appropriateness and setting, and it is the responsibility of the applicant to comply with regulations of other town boards and departments, including building, conservation, engineering, health, zoning, and the sign inspector. You should know that there is a 10-calendar day appeal period starting once a decision is filed with the town clerk. Any person aggrieved by our decision tonight can appeal to the Regional Commission of the Old Kings Highway Historic District. Our office administrator, Lisa Sherman, will be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding this process. And as some of you have heard me say in the past, regarding process, I will ask, as I call each application, for the applicant and/or the applicant's representative to come and sit at the table in front of us, speak into the microphones, identify yourself or yourselves, and state your application without interruption from the committee or from members of the public, after which I will ask the committee to make comments and ask questions, and following that, members of the public are free to make comments and ask questions. And for that purpose, if you would be kind enough to step up to the podium to my front left, speak into the microphone, and likewise identify yourself and where you live, and state your comment and/or questions. So, the first item on the agenda is 24-A052. It's to build a fence at 51 Gordon Lane. John Spira is the owner, and Bennett Fence and Arbor is the agent. And who do we have this evening?
So, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
More than a few months ago, we decided to put a pool in the backyard. It's a small space, so with all the setbacks and everything else, we managed to get all that approved. So now we are looking at fencing. And I know the 4-foot fencing is the preferred height, if you will. So we're looking for 6-foot fencing on both sides of the property line, and then to come across to where the garage is. The garage is not, the houses are not going to L-shape, so it wouldn't be more forward in the house. It's just up to the garage and across. Quite frankly, the reason for 6-foot versus 4-foot was I've got a small granddaughter, next door neighbor's got a child. There's children in the neighborhood, and I just don't feel safe as a homeowner with a 4-foot fence. And we're not there. We live in Rhode Island, but we're here a lot. We're here off-season too. And I just don't feel safe. 6-foot make the property feel safer and me safer that nobody's coming over the fence and into the pool, even though, you know, we have a cover and everything else on it. So that is that's the request which I have in front of you. I had pictures as part of the package. And any questions?
Is that it?
Is that?
Are you done with your presentation?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically it. I mean, just the length of all the measurements and everything are on the documents. So.
Okay. Any questions or comments from the committee?
Well, this will be a fence to enclose your pool,
Correct.
for safety reasons, yeah.
Correct.
It's a very nice fence.
Yep.
It's lovely. I don't see any reason to not approve this.
And the fence will be on the good side of the fence will be on both sides of the property, which my 2 neighbors are very appreciative of. So, you know.
They don't want to see you in your bathing suit?
I don't want to see myself in my bathing suit.
Okay,
I had one more question. You're replacing the split rail fence with split rail fence.
No, it's it's a lattice top cedar.
Same as what you're putting everywhere else, correct?
Yes, in the back of the property, there's the same type of fencing. It's higher. That fence wasn't put up by us. The neighbor in the back put it up, but on the side of the fence.
When you say you're going to enclose the pool, will you then run a portion of it to the edge of the house? Specifically, when you say replace existing split rail fence,
Oh, I see what, yes.
yeah, so how will you?
Okay, so one side of the property has a 4-foot wooden fence that I came to the committee, I guess about 3 years ago, to get approval on that. We're taking that down,
Right,
and we're recommending a 6-foot fence.
right,
The other side of the property has, I don't even call it a split rail. It's a split
Yeah.
rail that's in bad condition. It's deer fencing. It's not really a fence.
yeah,
So that's actually going to get torn up, and the same fence that's going on the left side of the house, which is what you're talking about, is the same fence that's going on the right side of the house, that wooden fence, the 6-foot wooden fence.
Yeah, but it doesn't, not according to the picture, actually run to the house to close off the backyard, which
Yeah, it does. It might not show it on,
bad rendering.
yeah, it may not show it on that, because
Okay,
the side of the house has got the split rail. Where it comes to the house in the back, there's I don't know, I guess there's a 5-foot, 6-foot section of fencing there that's been there, wood fencing that's been there. The other side of the house, which is the more open side, where the garage is, that's where we're going up to the garage line on the property line and then across to the garage. So
Yeah.
the whole backyard will be fenced in by the
Okay.
6-foot on both sides and the 8-foot, I guess it's on the whole back of the property that we're not touching.
right, okay.
So, yeah, the whole, yeah, we'll
Okay.
not be able to get in.
It's minor, it's not really a problem for us at any rate.
any other questions or comments from the committee? Any questions or comments from members of the public and/or abutters? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve 24-A052 as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And aye. So, John, if you would be kind enough to come and sign this document.
Sure. Yep.
Just says if you're going to make any changes, you'll let us know. Okay. You're all set?
Yeah.
Thank you.
By the way, there are 6 of us here tonight, so we should be alternating votes on the alternates,
Gotcha.
so you know.
I have no problem with that, Mr. Chairman.
I'll straighten that out on the next vote.
Oh, thank you.
Next one, I guess, will be John's, and then we'll go to you, Paul, for the following one.
Right, but he's on for this one, huh?
Okay.
I shall pass him the paper.
Could you repeat that?
There are 6 of us here tonight. Only 5 are entitled to vote.
I've been appointed.
That's right. We don't have the other alternates, so that means you have to
We're
just
appointed?
listen and not vote.
Well, that's excellent news.
Lucky guy.
Just waiting for an
I'm sure you'll
excuse.
find it very educational.
Always with you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh.
Yes, by the way, thank you, John, for mentioning that.
You're welcome.
I should have done it at the outset, but I'll do it now. Happy to report that John Stewart has been
Oh, that's
appointed
why.
by the
I was
selectmen,
baffled. Okay, now I know.
appointed by the selectmen as our standing architect contractor representative. So he is a full voting member of our committee once again. And congratulations, John.
Thank you. There you go. Thanks.
The next item on the agenda is 24-A053. It's to build a deck at 88 Merchant Avenue. Deborah Moran is the owner, and Gary Maintainus is the agent. Okay, great. Well, happy I got it right. So go ahead, Gary, tell us about your project.
Okay, so this is a proposed plan for 88 Merchant Ave for a wraparound deck on partially covered porch at 88 Merchant Ave. You gave us, obviously, the approval to build the house, and now the house is under construction, and we came to an agreement of what we wanted for a deck. And now we're in front of you to answer any questions that you might have on the plan.
Very good. What questions or comments do we have?
I thought it's looking good.
Thank you. We like the way the house is angled. Everybody says it's,
Yeah.
they like how it ended up.
I think the deck will add to it.
Yes.
That will be lovely. I just have a question about the materials that you're planning for the railing, just based on this page you have in here. So are you planning white posts and black balusters, just like
Black
that?
round balusters. That's the exact plan. You see how it's got the round? That's what they are, they're round.
Okay.
The roofing material on
It's-
the partial,
I'm sorry.
the roofing material over the deck?
That's the same as the house. It's the
Same as the
it's the
house,
black,
okay.
yeah, yeah.
Other questions or comments from the committee? Questions or comments from abutters or other interested members of the public? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
And aye. So, congratulations, Gary, and if you'd come up and sign this. Okay, you're all set.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
The next item on the agenda is 24-A054. It's to build a shed at 45 Carriage Lane. Charles and Susan Dean are the owners, and Pine Harbor Wood Products is the agent.
Hi, I'm Susan Dean.
Charles Dean.
Susan?
So who would like to present?
I will.
Okay.
So we have an existing shed on the property now that is going to be replaced with this new shed. The shed is going to be a little larger. It's going to be 220 square feet, poured on a cement slab. It will be painted white, and it will have a black roof to match the house.
Okay.
Okay?
Is the roof metal then?
Just the front little awning.
Okay, very good.
The asphalt will be on the
Dominantly,
yeah.
yeah, okay.
Any other questions or comments from the committee?
So that your existing shed you have, what's the size of that one? You said it's smaller?
It's 10 by 16, so 160 square feet.
Is there a cement pad there currently for that
No, there
shed?
isn't. No, that's, if you look at the shed now, it kind of tilts. It was
couldn't see
built
too
in
far through it.
99, before we owned the property, so it's time.
Beautiful house.
Nice neighborhood as well.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments from the committee? Questions or comments from abutters or other interested members of the public? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve 24-A054.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And aye. So, would one of you, Susan or Charles, come up and sign this, which is simply to say that if you've changed your mind about any of it, you'll let us know. Hey, good luck with it. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is 24-D002. It's to remove a non-original rear chimney at 405 Route 6A. Jesse and Jeannie Hagopian are the owners, and I see that they are both here tonight. So before you present, as is my custom, I will read letters that were presented to us. And this one is dated May 13th. Dear Old Kings Highway Historic District Committee members, my name is Tim Chang. I have been made aware of the circumstances, history, and present requests for the allowance of the demolition of this non-historic, non-original rear chimney on his property at 405 6A. It is important to me as a homeowner of an antique and historic home at 107 Route 6A, Yarmouthport, that a standard of reasonableness and consistency be upheld and maintained to enable a continuation of support for ongoing engagement by homeowners to sustain historic preservation. Given that similar chimney removals have been approved by this board in the recent past, along with the fact that the original beehive fireplace in the house had been removed a long time ago, rendering the demolished chimney as not historically relevant, I strongly support the demolition of the chimney with no good remedy. Thanks, Tim Chang, 107 Route 6A, Yarmouthport, Massachusetts. Second letter, submitted by Joel Chasen. Dear members of the Old Kings Highway, I am puzzled as to why this application has come before you tonight when the matter was clearly dealt with at the meeting in January. At that time, it was deemed irresponsible for Mr. Hagopian to demolish the chimney on the L at 405 Old Kings Highway in Yarmouthport. and he was ordered to replace the chimney. After all these months, the situation is exactly the same. Mr. Hagopian, who is knowledgeable as a Yarmouth realtor, tore down a chimney without an application to demolish in an early Cape Cod house, most likely dating to the early 1800s. Despite Mr. Hagopian's regret in doing so, it was done and we cannot go backward. I trust the members of Old Kings Highway will stick to its decision and that Mr. Hagopian will comply. Now, the third letter was submitted by John Grady. He has requested that he be allowed to read it himself, and so I will defer to him for that purpose at the time when I open the discussion to the public. He also submitted some amended documents, which I will let him explain at the time that he reads his letter. So having prefaced this by those letters, would one of you present your application?
Absolutely. Good evening. Thank you for having us back another time. It's my wife, Jeannie.
Hi.
I want to begin by expressing my regret for not following proper procedure on removing this chimney and the impact this has had on my neighbors and the time and energy of this board. I know that I put you all in an awkward position because the chimney is already down, but I want to encourage us tonight to have a fair and open and honest conversation about whether or not the chimney should be demolished. And I hope we can settle this tonight. I've reached out to several of my neighbors in the last few months and have sought to communicate my regret for not following the right procedure and explain my reasoning and plans for the house. I come before this board again based on the recommendation of Attorney James Wilson and the desire to have a fair hearing specifically about the demolition of this chimney. We believe the past decision requiring rebuilding a non-functioning masonry chimney was an abuse of discretion and retaliatory in nature. I think we are all helped by the workshop event in April, which Attorney Wilson specifically addressed the criteria for considering a certificate of demolition. He made clear that there are only two considerations. The first being the architectural and historical significance, and the second being the public interest. We believe the facts are clear about the historical and architectural significance of this chimney based on the site visits, documentation from the Historic Commission of Yarmouth and of the state confirming the removal of the Dutch oven and replacement with a modern chimney in the rear L, and comments made on the February 12th meeting confirming the rear chimney and fireplace were not original to the structure by the professional architect. Concerning the public interest, there are many here tonight in the letters that will speak to this more objectively than I can. We plan on maintaining and carefully restoring this home in the years to come. The condition of the home when we purchased it in October requires a significant renovation, and we hope to be good stewards of that work over the coming months. Attorney Wilson commented about the importance of neighborhood consistency, which we equally value. This small change harmonizes well with the surrounding neighborhood. I'm asking for a small change in contrast to the many large alterations to rear Ls that have recently been approved and seek to preserve and restore the remainder of this special home. Those are my comments for tonight. Do you have anything to add?
No, I wasn't able to be here at the other meeting, but I'm Jeannie. I also own the home with Jesse. I'm his wife. And I just want to, once again, we appreciate your work. We've worked with you about our other antique home where we're seeking to raise our 3 children. We don't take it lightly at all. And I was a bit surprised by the last meeting because it made, our character, my children and I were watching at home. One of our teenagers was here. I'm not sure if another teenager has arrived now. So, I would just like to share with you our heart is to raise our children here in Yarmouthport and understand the extreme, we're very grateful for your presence here in the community, and we're seeking to be very, as he said, we use the word steward very carefully. We're stewarding a privilege of an antique home. So I just wanted to add that, and I wanted to express our gratitude.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments from the committee? I just have one point of clarification on your presentation, Jesse. You were advised by the commission lawyer to reapply for the demolition?
Yes, at the appeal hearing, he recommended to me personally and in front of the whole meeting that I go ahead and apply for a certificate of demolition. He said that I had the right and privilege to do that.
Okay.
Are we in agreement on that?
I would have to go back and review the record on it. Those meetings are not videotaped, so it would be a voice recording.
Yeah.
And if it was a conversation that you had privately with Mr. Wilson, I would not be aware of that.
Yeah.
So, but it was a paramount question I had
Yeah.
regarding this application tonight, which is why are we doing this again?
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me that you're doing it, by your assessment, you're doing it on the advice of the counsel for the commission.
Yeah, I think there's several people here who were there at the meeting who heard him say the same exact
Right?
thing.
I see someone with their hand raised in the back, so I see several. Okay. All right, that clears that up.
We should have been notified about that.
I'm sorry. If anyone from the public wants to speak, I would ask you to defer until such time as I ask for it, and you'll all be allowed to speak. So,
Robert, you didn't read my letter. I sent a letter as well.
do I have her letter?
Yeah, they're all attached.
Well, I submitted a letter too.
This is from Christine Marsigliano.
Oh,
That's
so let me see. John Grady. Is this one?
okay.
So
All right,
they're in there,
okay.
Just in the back.
Sorry about that. Let's read the letters. This one's dated May 6. Dear Old Kings Highway Historic District Committee members, we have carefully considered the facts surrounding the request by Jesse Hagopian at 405 Route 6A for the demolition of his non-original, non-historic rear chimney and support him in this endeavor. We feel there is no architectural/historic relevance as the original beehive fireplace was removed a long time ago after several rear chimneys of storied homes in the immediate area with even more visibility have been approved by this board. And it's signed by 11 people. So I guess this is by way of a survey that was circulated. Okay. Then, dear members, this is from Christine Marsigliano. I enclose herewith the building description prepared by Richard Hazelhurst in 1980 of the Historical Society of Old Yarmouth for this historic house located at 405 Route 6A. Although the photo is dark, the silhouette clearly shows the front and rear chimneys of this historic house. It was owned by the following prominent residents for over 200 years in Yarmouthport. Henry Matthews and Rebecca Gray, daughter married Seth Hamlin, Sea Captain Hamlin. Joseph E. Matthews married Abby Taylor, Phoebe Thatcher Taylor, baker and hospital worker. Sally White, daughter of Yarmouthport librarian Martha White. So, are there any other letters that I've overlooked?
I don't
Good,
think so.
okay. All right, so, questions or comments from the committee?
I just want to comment that I have no real assurity on the age of this chimney or the beehive thing or anything, but there seems to be a consensus, at least, that it is non-historic. And if that's the case, my only issue would be is that you began any of this without the proper protocol, which you have mentioned. Whatever you do, you need to follow the protocol. You did not, you took it down, but in viewing the evidence, it appears to be non-historic. So,
I don't want to interrupt you, but there's no such thing as non-historic. It existed, we don't know how long.
Well, I thought they said it was 19.
Historic could be from 5 years ago. It's still, historically, it's been there for 5
Semantics.
years.
Semantics. It's
Yeah.
Yeah,
Understand
but
what
are
I'm
we
saying?
concerning ourselves that were built 5 years ago? I
No,
mean, when do we
that's
draw the
all-
line?
We draw the line when someone demolishes something that they're not allowed to because
That's
they
what
haven't
she's
applied.
saying.
Well,
Exactly, so that's, I just mentioned that.
Okay.
The line was drawn because he didn't apply. But my sense is, and I'm not the authority here, but if you didn't follow protocol, that's unfortunate, but the sense is that it appears to be relative to Route 6A and the historical value of those homes, it doesn't appear to be that historical. It seems to be a 1980s or...
let's get our nomenclature straight. Historic simply means it happened. It doesn't specify when it happened. It could have happened last week, and it's still historic. If you want to refer to antiquity, you should use the term antique, which generally means 100 years old or older. That's the common definition of antique. Or be more specific in what's meant when you use the word historic. Historic is a difficult term because it just means it happened.
All right, then antique
Okay.
would apply an even older age to the thing, it would seem to me.
So I think there's a differentiation on this house is of historic versus original.
Right.
So
Okay.
when some of the people who wrote in letters mentioned it was non-historic, I believe that wording was incorrect. Maybe it was not the original chimney, but it was still an historic chimney. We don't know when it was built, but it was certainly historic. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Well,
All right.
I'll pipe in with my 2 cents. We visited the property, it was publicly advertised. We were very careful not to debate or talk to each other, but I have to say I was very impressed by Jesse's knowledge of what he is now the owner of, and I think this house is in incredibly good hands with him and his wife. Now taking care of it, trying to bring it back to the state where it's even livable, because, I mean, we could see rats' nests, and it's been in distress for quite a while. And I go back with what Paula said. You know, yes, this wasn't done properly, but I think he's here to try to remedy that, and so but I think the neighbors who have weighed in and those of you who are here need to recognize that he's a very good steward for this house. Thank you.
Other questions or comments from the committee? I have just one, which is I think this committee should rule on this application, having heard, which we have not yet heard, from everyone who wants to speak, as if the chimney was still standing. The fact that the chimney was removed should not weigh into our decision, in my opinion. We should decide as if the chimney was still standing. Any other questions or comments? All right.
Can I go on the record of saying that as his wife, I will make sure he always asks for permission? We won't get into our marriage, but I'm doing the best I can.
Okay.
We now all know.
I appreciate your effort.
Involve the town, well, to be clear, we should have involved the town of Yarmouth building inspector, correct?
Well, this is the first stop.
Okay, that helps me for the future.
Okay. All right, so I guess we're done with our comments and questions at this point.
So the chimney, okay. You're going to set aside our past. I don't know if we can do that,
Well, I just think it muddies the water.
I agree.
okay?
I think
So,
it's well said on the front page. Removal of non-original rear chimney that is structurally compromised and leaking water.
Because that
That's-
non-original doesn't mean anything.
Pardon?
Non-original means nothing.
Why don't you give it another term that works for you?
The existing chimney.
Yes.
I think
That's all we can say if we're going to.
this committee has adopted in principle the Secretary of Interior standards for historic preservation and restoration, and the standards specifically refer to alterations that have gained historic significance in their own right, or artistic or aesthetic significance in their own right. So that was pointed out by a former member of this committee at the last hearing on this subject. All right, I think we should open this up because we have a lot of people here who I know want to speak. So who would like to speak first? Okay, you have your hand up.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Judith Recknagel.
Could you speak up, please?
I am Judith Recknagel. Is that better? Mm-hmm. I live at 408 Route 6A, which is across the street from 405. And I served on this committee several years ago. I was a member of this Old Kings Highway Committee. And I also did attend the appeal hearing that was just mentioned about this application. Now, during my time here, I definitely remember a situation where the committee did ask that an exterior portion, are you all hearing me? An exterior portion of the chimney be rebuilt, be retained. And it was not connected to anything on the inside. It was not connected to a fireplace. It was maintained on the outside because of the setting and the appearance of the building. So I do know that happened at least once in my memory. And one reason I remember it is a little unusual. Most of the time, a feature as important as a chimney would definitely have to have a certificate of demolition approved before it would come down. It just never happened that someone would take down a chimney without a certificate. Now, I also attended the appeal hearing on this application. I recall that the application had been denied by this committee. And then the applicant, unfortunately, was late in submitting it to the appeal board. And because of that, by law, the appeal board was not allowed to hear any of the discussion, to hear the case on its merits. The appeal board was not allowed to hear why the chimney was historically significant. They were not allowed to hear any of it because the application was late. And Attorney Wilson said, go back to the Yarmouth Committee and get a denial, and then you'll have a clean slate, turn it in within the time allotted, and then the appeals will hear it. And I'm under the impression that that is the reason why this is happening tonight, because I can tell you, in my time here on this board, I never knew of a decision that had been denied and then was allowed to come back again to be overturned. I mean, if that were allowed, why wouldn't everybody do that? This application that we're sitting here discussing was actually previously denied at a meeting of this very board. As I said, it went to the appeals committee late. They were not allowed to hear it. And that was really the invitation, was to come again, get a fresh denial, and then go within the correct period of time so it could be heard by the appeals board. So,
Was it denied or withdrawn?
Yeah, I don't recall
it was
denying it.
denied here.
We didn't deny it, though.
Withdraw, right?
We did deny it. Unanimously.
Yeah, it was,
Yes.
yeah, it was denied at this board.
With Rick here.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Judith. Yes.
Then why you see PAC?
Good evening. My name is Cindy Masiaga, and I live at 398 Route 6A. And it wasn't a survey that was sent around that you read, just to clarify that. Owners,
Petition, what would you call it, a petition?
it was supportive signatures. They watched the workshop, which was imperative, on August 8th. They watched the 212 hearing, and they read everything that was available online up to that point.
Right, thank you for that clarification.
As far as you supported the demolition unanimously, and then you made a clause that you restore the external part of the chimney. That's what happened in my mind at the hearing.
That's what I remember, too.
That's what you remember, okay. And that can be easily checked. What else did I want to say? I think the attorney was very clear at the very end of the appeal hearing. He said that Jesse gets a clean slate. This is not over, folks. We're starting all over. So he was clear that he was bringing it back to, he was able to apply again for a demolition of the chimney. I remember the conversation clearly to the group that was at the appeal. The only other thing I want to reiterate is, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for saying it, but the workshop on August 8th by the regional attorney, the lawyer for Old Kings Highway, was so informative. I recommend everybody watch it. And he clearly said there were only two factors, which is what Jesse said, that should weigh into a decision about a demolition, and that is historical or architectural significance and public interest. There is a definition, architectural definition for historic significance. If you look it up, it's what's important, what that element is important as far as history is concerned, or an event that caused change. So there is a definition for historical significance. I think that's it. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. Who's next? Yes?
Good evening. My name is Lawrence Thatcher Pereira. I live at 58 Strawberry Lane. I want to thank everyone for their time. I know you guys work, and people, friends, work very hard at what you do. And it seems like there's a lot of dedication and energy going into this. And I could only hope that that was, shared in all facets of happenings of the town. So I congratulate you on your efforts. I think that, I think it was Jesse's wife who brought this up, that it is important to recognize that the Agopians are trying to call this town, specifically Yarmouthport, the 6A corridor, Old Kings Highway, whatever you want to call it, their home. And it seems, I was not at the original meeting, but it seems like there is some energy behind this desk, or whatever you want to call it, that is maybe not in the best of spirits. And I don't necessarily, I'm just picking up on that as being like a witness to the conversation. My only experience with a chimney being removed without permission was when in my own house, a drunk driver hit the corner of it in 1970s and knocked the chimney down, and it was rebuilt. I am sure that if Jesse knew that the troubles and the time that everyone has put into this cause, that this would be happening, he would have never done that. And I know that if you, the six of you, want to encourage the younger generations of this town to stay put and do business with the best interests, whether it's architecturally or supporting their own children, that you make a decision which is fair. I have lived in this town not as long as some of you. However, speaking of history, my ancestors have been here for many, many, many generations. I teach math to 6th graders. I don't know how many, but my guess is a dozen. And I think the people who came before us are likely looking down, fascinated that we're putting in this kind of effort into something which seems, it seems like we're struggling with what actually is historically significant. Like, what is that definition? And that is a little bit mind-boggling to me, that people who spend their time, like, you don't have a concrete definition, and we're kind of going back and forth on this. I would just encourage you to, think of what's best for the Agopians as they continue to bring this house back to life. And hopefully this won't be the last house that they do, within our town, because they are stewards of a historic house that they live in, that they're raising a family in. They contribute more than any other young family that I know. And I just hope that you don't look at this as a way to retaliate against, not, having full permission to take a chimney down. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Well, I just want to
Wait.
make it public. I didn't see any hands.
We'll get our chance. We'll get our chance. I know that we have others who want to speak, so.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Ann Arati. I live at 408, 6A across the street from 405. I trust that the future in our historical district, and particularly in the Captain's Mile of Route 6A, depends on knowledge and care to preserve our homes and honor our past. We count on our Old Kings Highway Committee to interpret and enforce these principles. When Judy and I came here in 1997, it was not like any other place we had moved to. We had to research our property, meet with various departments and committees in the town, including building and Old Kings Highway. At the time, I had mixed feelings, as it seemed so tedious. For a while, I took it personally and wondered if the town really liked me. Where did I come to? But over time, we came to understand and appreciate the unique value of living in an 1820s home in an historic neighborhood. One of the first women we met in the neighborhood was Sally White. What a joy to visit with Sally at Phoebe's house on 405 and hear her stories about the neighborhood and growing up inside the Yarmouth Port Library. We depend on one another to love these homes for their own sake. Surely they will outlive us, but the essence of this love is preservation. The last few years in this corner of Route 6A have been difficult ones. Not only have we suffered from a worldwide pandemic, but we've also lost a sense of safety and respect as homeowners. Without going back to these difficulties, it's important to stress that we rely upon our town to do the right thing and to respect us as abutters. Moving here was not only buying a property, but becoming a small part of the history of this street, shared by neighbors who include preservation with personal taste and value in maintaining historical features over personal gain. I regret Mr. Hagopian did not give his full attention to sharing his plan to demolish the chimney with the town, took it down without a permit. Our OKH committee is expected to uphold the rules for the historic district. The decision to put this chimney back up was already made. I strongly support that the chimney be rebuilt, and I ask the committee to uphold their previous decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, good evening. My name's Carolyn Burnett. I live on Squirrel Run Street, which is the dead end that we still call it the IFA parking lot, but it dead ends right into close proximity to the subject home. I just wanted to start off by saying, like Jesse, I grew up on the Cape and then moved away for a little bit and came back. I can't tell you if this aligns with Jesse, but maybe it was the family, maybe the love for water, or maybe the love of history, and this special place that we can call home. Cape Cod certainly embodies a lot of history. So to that point, I just wanted to start by thanking the board. You all have put nothing that hasn't been said already, but so much time and energy into not just this particular case, but so many cases, and I really thank you for your volunteerism. In regards to this particular case, I'm not as invested as some others. I haven't watched all of the hearings. I didn't know there was a lawyer involved until this evening, but I did have the opportunity to watch the February 12th meeting. And in that meeting, there were a couple comments that really upset me as a person, and that's why I'm here this evening, is just to speak of the character of Jesse Hagopian and Jeannie Hagopian. Both of them, something was mentioned that, they, of all people, since Jesse happens to be a realtor, should be examples for our town. I can tell you, in the community, in Yarmouthport, in the town of Yarmouth, on the Cape, this family is nothing but an example to our community. Their ethics, their hardworking, earnest, everything about the values that the Hagopians stand for. And I'm not just talking about this nuclear couple in front of us, but extending on beyond that. You could find a Hagopian in the emergency room with her hands covered in blood. You could find a Hagopian on Bass River with his hands covered in oil. These are people beyond just this one particular chimney at this one particular home. These are people that act ethically in our community, and it's extremely upsetting as a person to hear anything else but that be associated with an act of, I can't speak to what Jesse was thinking when he took down the chimney. Honestly, I would love to have seen how he did it. If it but to that point, the chimney, I can just say I've learned so much, even from that one episode on February 12th. I've learned so much about the jargon around a chimney, and I would even bet, the improvements that I've seen at this particular property, since I do walk through that parking lot so often with my own children. Jesse and his wife are the kind of people that physically will have their hands in that soil. The last time I saw him there, he was using a shop vac. I don't know why the chimney was taken down without the proper paperwork to accompany it, but I just hope that the character of this family is associated with who they are. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, who's next?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
That's fine.
Okay. John Grady, 415 Route 6A in Yarmouthport. And I submitted a lengthy letter and some exhibits this past week, and so that the committee would have those in its possession for tonight's hearing. And I'm not going to read the whole letter. I'm going to read because I don't want to put you to sleep. I will read a condensed version, which also includes additional information which was learned at the site visit last Friday. Okay. And I want to start off by saying this is not about Jesse and Jean. I'm sure they have the best of intentions. This is about this property and its place in the community and the architectural significance that it has. I'm going to offer some specific observations based upon my experience with antique homes and construction, combined with evidence from the historical record. Lisa, my wife, and I are neighbors in a half cape of the same period, sharing many similar characteristics as 4056A, including a federal door with old glass side and transom lights, original pegged windows with later 6-over sash installed. The original windows are not there in either house, but the 6-over-6 sash that's installed in the windows in both houses, I can't speak to the age in Jesse's, but in our house, that sash is 100 years old. So it's not original, but it certainly is historic. And each has a central chimney serving multiple fireplaces, and an L with a chimney for a fireplace. These observations are derived from 40 years of living in and maintaining antique homes, construction of architect-designed custom homes, and 45 years as real estate brokers involved in the sale of antique homes. We have learned that the preservation of external architectural features in antique homes is wholly compatible with modernization of interior spaces. Our house is antique. Many of the antique features still exist today, yet it is very modern in terms of bathrooms, kitchens, and things of that nature. 4056A is one of 6 half capes from the late 1700s and early 1800s, located on the south side of Route 6A between Union and Pine Streets. Each of these included an architectural feature of a chimney in its L. Phoebe's house at 4056A remained in the same family for nearly 200 years and has been preserved with minimal changes since its original construction. It has not been modernized, and it has been vacant for a while because the previous owner is unwell. However, basic maintenance has been performed. Old Kings Highway and Town of Yarmouth building permits indicate the previous owner added a gazebo and a new roof on the house in 2003 and on the garage in 2009. A new boiler and another new roof were added in 2021. The age of this house is not unknown. Documentation in the Massachusetts Cultural Resource Information System, MACRIS, the Historical Society of Old Yarmouth Files, the publication Yarmouth Old Homes and Gathering Places, and historic maps of Yarmouthport from 1858, 1880, 1905 document its history. The historical record, plus architectural features and construction techniques and materials, date the origins and time of construction of Phoebe's house to the early 1800s. And this information has been provided in exhibits to the committee. Now, in these L's, the chimney was intended to serve a cooking hearth. For example, our half cape, number 415, contains a chimney in its L with a raised hearth Rumford fireplace with a crane, often referred to as a Dutch oven, in the kitchen. As a side comment here, I found nowhere in the record where it said a beehive oven was ever in this house or was taken out. It talks about a Dutch oven. And there's a photo of a Dutch oven in the exhibits I provided. A thimble to vent a wood or coal-burning appliance is in the adjacent room behind the fireplace. The fireplace in our front parlor also has a crane for a Dutch oven. Perhaps cooking was done in the front parlor during cold months and in the L during some summer months. It takes a lot of fire to make enough coals to do hearth cooking. Accordingly, we have many 1800s and earlier homes on Old Kings Highway with L's featuring a chimney. Historical documents for 4056A indicate a Dutch oven in the L was replaced with a fireplace in 1976. Destruction of or rebuilding of the chimney would not be needed for this. We reconstructed a fireplace in the original center chimney in our home that a previous owner had removed to install a wood stove. New construction of Dutch ovens ended with the advent of wood and coal-burning iron stoves in the early to 19th century. A chimney built in the last 100 years, the most recent 100 years, would have contemporary brick, a tile lining, and a metal damper below the smoke shelf. At the recent site visit, there was no evidence of tiles. However, a damper from demolition of the chimney was evident. Another damper was present in the original fireplace in the front parlor. These dampers may have been installed when the Dutch oven was converted to a fireplace in 1976, without a change of the chimneys above the smoke shelf. It's not necessary to tear down a chimney to put in a damper. The remaining bricks on site and those in the photo provided in the application do not appear to be contemporary bricks. The bricks are uniform in size, matching the brick size in our two original chimneys at 415-6A. There was mention of newspaper previously in the chimney. Newspaper is evidence of the date of the newspaper, not of the chimney. Newspaper was used for various purposes, including sealing cavities and unused flues to reduce cold air infiltration. A Boston Globe from 1920 was used as a vapor barrier in a portion of my prior 1800s home. A home in Yarmouthport with an original 1790 center chimney was found to have a newspaper from the bombing of Pearl Harbor in its chimney. I do not believe non-historic, in quotes, has any meaning or relevance in the context of 405-6A and its chimney. The location of its roof penetration may or may not have been altered either during original construction or during maintenance over the past 200 years. It may or may not be original, however, the bricks used and the documented presence of a Dutch oven dated to the early 1800s. The chimney may or may not have been repairable, as evidence of inspection by a qualified mason or architect is not available. Inspection is no longer possible as much as the evidence has been lost. Water leaking around a chimney is often due to failed flashing and porous brick and mortar. Flashing can be restored, mortar can be repointed, and bricks can be sealed or purged to prevent water infiltration. We flashed and sealed the exterior of our rear chimney after a leak in 2019. Its interior portions are sealed in the attic and purged between the kitchen and the adjacent room. These are normal maintenance procedures for a chimney, not cause for destruction. It's my understanding Old Kings Highway Committee decisions are site-specific based upon the unique character, setting, and history of each property. The committee's decisions are not limited by precedent or actions taken on other applications. Each application must stand on its own merits. The properties cited in the current application may be interesting, however, differ from the current application in important respects. All were included in applications submitted by construction professionals and reviewed and approved by Old Kings Highway prior to any demolition. Chimney removal was a single element of a more extensive project in each case. These examples do not justify removal of a chimney from a historic property without informed inspection, notice, and demolition permits from both Old Kings Highway and the Yarmouth Building Department. This is also a violation of the state building code, by the way. That's why the building inspector got involved in this. The issue at stake is what are the facts and what is the evidence? Have any facts and evidence been introduced that would justify waiver or modification of the prior unanimous decision to deny a demolition permit and require restoration of this architecturally significant chimney? It's the committee's duty to decide this based upon the facts available and guidance in the Old Kings Highway Act and Bulletin. In some of the letters that were read previously, the words non-original, non-historic, and beehive oven were included. I'm not an attorney, but I am an English major. I know that non-original doesn't really matter. There are examples throughout town of historic structures with historic chimneys that are not original. Best example is the Winslow Crocker House. Beehive oven is not mentioned anywhere in the documentation. So saying that it was taken out, there's just no justification for that in facts. That's the end of my comments.
Thank you. Yes.
I just want to clarify something that he said. I just have a couple things.
Everyone will get a chance to speak.
Everybody will speak. I just want to clarify where the Beehive oven came from. So that was from Richard Ventrone, who was on the 212 meeting, who said that, if you remember, he said that he was okay with that rear chimney coming down from the first site visit. We could have lost a Beehive oven, an original Beehive oven, but we didn't. That's where the Beehive came from. Okay. So I just want to emphasize that the architect was fine with that rear chimney coming down. What happened was there were some people here who were not supportive of it, and the committee members kind of did a 360 and supported the public interest.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yep.
The other thing I want to talk about is I believe in the case by case. You know, everything goes by case, but there has to be some consistency with apples to apples. So at I can't remember the Flax address, 425 Route 6A, just recently, within the last year or two, their rear chimney was supported to come down, which is highly visible from the street, original, and that was because it was leaking. Okay, so this committee allowed that, and that's one of the four that, and I think it is important that there be some consistency when you're going apples to apples. I think one of them wasn't the same kind of a house, it was a 60s house, but the other three, a rear chimney is a rear chimney. And whether it was done for a bigger project or not, I don't think is relevant. It's a rear chimney, a rear chimney. I don't think whether a construction person submits an application is relevant because, as we know, sometimes they're honest and sometimes they're just like everybody else and they're not, and they'll want to support something for their client. I think that's also irrelevant. I think I just want to comment on the restoration of the Part B that you guys proposed at the first hearing of an external chimney from the attic up. I've never seen that looking at houses. I've bought and sold many homes throughout my life, all antiques. It's just a hole in the roof, which can cause leaks and further problems. And I don't know about resaleability. I wouldn't buy a house that had a chimney going from the attic up. Thank you for listening.
Okay. Yes.
I hope you can hear me tonight. I've been using Hall's Mentholyptus all day so you could hear my voice. My name is Lisa True Grady. I live at 415 Route 6A in Yarmouthport. As John Grady has stated, I've been a licensed real estate broker for 45 years. I started when I was 24. You can all do the math later. For most of my career, I was a senior vice president for Coldwell Banker New England. But I'd like to share a little bit more about my background so you know where my information comes from. In those years, I have listed, sold, and previewed countless antique properties in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Vermont. I've been twice certified by Historic New England, which was then called the Society for the Preservation of New England Antiquities, as a historic property specialist. I'm a member of Historic New England, and I was a docent for Historic New England at the Winslow Crocker House for several years, which, by the way, although built in the late 1790s, is not original to the site and had the chimney rebuilt back in the 1930s. It doesn't have to be original to be historic. I'm a past trustee and member of the Historical Society of Old Yarmouth and currently serve on the Programs Committee. We're working on a Yarmouth Port Historic House tour for late September. I'm a member of Nantucket Preservation Trust, a supporter of Protect Our Past. It's because of this lifelong passion that we chose to live in this historic district, and it's what moves me to speak at this podium to protect it. And I'd like to offer a different perspective tonight based on history. Each one of these homes along the Old Kings Highway has a story to tell. In the late 1970s, every antique property in Yarmouth was visited to compile the data needed for them to be placed on the National Register of Historic Places. Architectural features, personal stories, and the history of each home was recorded. Photos were taken. References to the Old Town maps dating back to 1850 were used. This information was then entered into the State Database of Historic Properties, which is called MACRIS. In the 1980s, our Historical Society published the Yarmouth Book of Old Homes and Gathering Places. It's no longer in print, but you can still find copies.
We have one too.
Good, I'm glad to hear that. I heard Bob gave you a copy. Out of curiosity and interest, on May 7th, along with a friend from the Historical Society, I walked from Mill Lane to just beyond Union Street on 6A. We stopped to look at each home, recording the street number, the style of the house. We counted chimneys and L's. We also stopped to talk with owners who were out enjoying the day. One of the inn owners thought we were visitors doing the Captain's Mile tour. In case you're not familiar with it, the Historical Society has a self-guided tour map of sea captains' homes. It's an educational tool and popular with visitors who come here because of our history. Last year, we met a person who was visiting from just over the bridge. She showed us the map in her hand, and with a very clear X that crossed off one of the captain's homes. There's nothing left of the original house, she commented. These things matter. The day following our walk, I cross-checked every home through the MACRIS website. I read the story of each home. Many who were interviewed in the 1970s had been in their homes for generations. Qualities such as respecting the past, loyalty to one's family and neighbor, and the honesty of a house were specifically mentioned. Owners with names like Thatcher, Hallett, Bray, Taylor, and Matthews were prevalent. They still are. Number 405 is a Matthews-Taylor house that had the legacy of remaining in the same family for over 200 years with minimal changes. Phoebe Taylor was in her mid-70s when she was interviewed about her house in the late 1970s, and her name pops up in stories of other homes along 6A. She lived in that house until her 90s, and then it quietly passed to her friend Sally White. It remained with Sally until October of last year. We have so few stories left, like Phoebe's house. Many of our homes have changed hands multiple times since we received our National Register plaques in the 1980s. I like facts. It's not enough to stand here and say that the L's in their chimneys are a defining characteristic of the homes along 6A. I wanted to do a count, and here's what I found. I did not include businesses. We walked past 102 houses from the corner of Mill Lane to just beyond Union Street. Most of these houses have one or more chimneys. Very few had none at all. The chimneys are the souls of these homes. A few of the homes that I would have referred to by sight as newer are now more than 50 years old, which Historic New England and the Mass Historical Commission now classify as antique or historic, 50 years old. Out of the 102 homes, 34 are Cape-style homes, either full capes, three-quarter capes, or half capes. Out of the 34 Cape-style homes, 22 of the homes had L's with chimneys. These L's had a purpose in the origin of the house. They held cooking hearths, washing areas, storage, and sometimes two-holer privies. They were purposeful then, and they still are now. Out of the 34 Cape-style homes, 18 were half capes, like 405 Route 6A. 12 of those 18 still have their L's and chimneys. Until very recently, there would have been 15 that still had their L chimneys. 2 were removed as a byproduct of major remodeling. The chimney on the L at 405 Route 6A was demolished without a permit. and this has happened just in the past couple of years. We need to pay attention. The MACRIS data on the houses along 6A also refers to nesting of same-style houses built at approximately the same time. The nest of 6 half-capes located between Pine Street and Union Street, that includes 405 Route 6A, were built in the late 1700s to early 1800s. Were broken up by the professional building developed by Gordon Clark in the 1960s prior to the establishment of the Old Kings Highway District. Gordon had an eye for detail and history and was careful to make this commercial complex blend into our historical streetscape by building 5 brick chimneys along the roof line, including an arched one in the center that mimics the one that was demolished at 405 Route 6A. Out of the nest of 6 half-capes in this stretch, 4 of us still have our L and L chimneys. I would call this a very good example of an important character-defining architectural feature, and as such, protected in the language of the Historic District, whether it's visible from the street or not. May is National Preservation Month. The Old Kings Highway Historic District is the largest contiguous historic district in our country. It's also a nationally designated scenic byway. We should be proud of this. As homeowners in the historic district, we all have a part to play, and at the end of our stewardship, we hopefully leave it in a better place by showing respect to the legacy that has been left in our hands. We can choose to tear down history or build it up. Preservation looks towards repairs, not demolitions. Demolitions without due process or permits are injurious to the fabric and history of our homes and an affront to those who do follow the rules. I ask that the committee uphold February's unanimous decision, which was to deny the chimney demolition at 405 Route 6A, and as a remedy, order the rebuild of the exterior chimney from the roof line up in order to restore the long-standing character of this home. This decision was supported by the building department in the violation notice of the town building laws that was sent to the applicant. The Regional Old Kings Highway denied the applicant's appeal because it was filed outside of allowed time frame. However, they did not vacate the decision or remedy made by this committee. It still stands. The integrity of this home has been harmed, and it needs to be made right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Christine Marzigliano. I'm a past president of the Historical Society of Old Yarmouth. I'm speaking for myself tonight. I'm not going to go into a long talk, but the whole purpose of Old Kings Highway, when it was established, was to preserve the homes along the north side, most especially Captain's Mile. And the way I look at it is it's as if the silhouette is still there of each of the houses. So if back in 1980, when the write-up was done, even though the picture is very poor, what is showing in the picture? 2 chimneys. And even up until recently, before Mr. Hagopian tore down the chimney, there were 2 chimneys there. So if chimneys were always on this house, they should always be on this house. And I ask that you deny the application for the demolition of the chimney and have them either rebuild it or provide some remedy. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak?
I think there's 5
Yes.
people on.
Is there anyone new who wishes to speak? No, all right.
There might be somebody on Zoom.
Coming up, this shouldn't be allowed, I'm sorry.
We have people waiting.
Is there?
We have people waiting on Zoom, I think.
Let me, are there people on Zoom who want to speak?
We've got
Four
people up
names
on.
just got up on Zoom during this conversation.
Well, if they want to speak, they should use the hand rise, use the icon and raise your hand. I suspect they're for other things.
Really, it's we're starting
This
to.
isn't right.
I just have one comment to
Wait.
make.
All right, is this something new?
Can you
Are
wait?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to talk about when also in the attorney's meeting, the workshop to the committee members on August 8th, he gave an example that when the committee started in the 70s, Old Kings Highway, that at that time, they made everybody have cedar shingles on their roof. That changed over time to make what Jesse's point was in the last hearing because of reasonableness. So we have to really understand that not everybody can afford cedar shingle roofs, and so that's why that standard changed.
Okay, thank you. All right, so,
We got another one.
yes,
And I'll make it really quick. My name is Heather Campbell, and I live at 48 Mill Lane, and we have sat before this committee, I think at least 6 times. And I'm not going to speak of character. I'm not going to speak of historic or whatever. I'm just going to speak about the committee itself and what you were created for. And I don't know this family, but what I do know is that when you are going to buy and purchase, and I would think people involved in real estate would know this, that you must do the proper procedures. And we always did. We didn't always like the answers we got, but we lived with them. Thank you. By the way, I did buy a house with a chimney that was just the roof up.
Ah.
interesting. Okay, so,
Wait, can I say something? Jesse and Gina, do you guys feel like you're being singled out by this board in any manner at all?
John,
really,
can we finish with a public comment and then?
we're done.
Are we done? I thought there were people on Zoom.
Zoom people.
Did they raise their hand?
No.
Guess not. Okay, go
That
ahead.
was my question. Do you feel like you're being singled out? Because I feel like a referee here.
Well,
No, it's like people are saying we're attacking you. Do you feel that way?
I mean, I'll speak. I think one person said there's a lot of energy on this issue. I think that we should all talk about the elephant in the room, that there's a generational divide at this moment. And there's a host of people in this room seeking to raise children here in Yarmouthport. And we're kind of being made to feel, because of remarks made, that we're doing so recklessly and not as preservationist.
From this board, not from the
No, I think
peanut
the
gallery.
concern was that the board came out. I watched it at home in my living room with my first grader and my 7th grader, who said, "Why are they yelling about Dad?" And Jesse said, "I should have gotten a permit. I'm sorry, what can we do?" And then the discussion turned on. They said he was a manipulator, and somebody in the audience has said his character is to question. And we just said people are frustrated that Dad took the chimney down. And what we would like to do is have a community that then doesn't try to attack somebody's character when you disagree. That seemed to happen, and we said, let's just build the chimney, and people kept calling and saying, we watched the video, something about this seems off. And so I think we're trying to say, we appreciate you all as volunteers. We are very aware. You've told us things that we don't like to hear about our house, and we have complied about 95 Route 6A. So we're not reckless. I mean, so I think the concern in the room is we don't have an unlimited budget, but we care greatly about houses. He cares much more than me. This was not my vision for my life, but I love this man, and I don't think he's an evildoer, so I'm on his ship. We care about houses. This is very helpful tonight. I can understand why these neighbors are frustrated. They care deeply and passionately about homes, and I've learned a lot. But the reality is there is a generation coming after them. We are struggling here to raise children here. And I think Mr. Pereira, who is a teacher, is saying, we appreciate your energy, but there are issues in our community that no one is concerned with, and I do not want to say are of lesser or greater of importance, but children are not learning to read. Our public schools are struggling. Every teacher I know is at their wits' end, and families have fallen apart. We have we could go on tonight, which we don't need to.
Don't have anything to do with
But that's what I'm saying. You're feeling in the room, I think, is that there's families, there's our friends are just like, wait, hold on, why is this? We're not seeking. Literally, the man called me and said, this home is beautiful. I love this. I mean, it's as if we're these reckless young folks who want to just tear apart the town, but it's really expensive.
You feel that the board is treating you like that?
No, I'm just telling you why I think there's a lot of energy in this room tonight because of the previous meeting.
Okay, the previous meeting
And then the
was-
fact that in appeals meeting, there seemed to be that similar energy in the room.
I'm going to jump in here if I may. I want to say, first of all, I want to clarify a remark I made earlier about the definition of historic, meaning it happened. We can certainly qualify that term by saying historic significance, which I think makes it more clear to more people. The other thing is I made the suggestion that this committee review this application as though the committee was still standing.
The chimney.
The chimney. The committee hopefully is still standing. Okay, or sitting. The reason I did that was an effort to frame this conversation without the emotional overtones that we've been hearing tonight, to focus on the application itself and the historic significance or lack thereof of that chimney. So let me tell you what we are empowered to do in making our decisions. We definitely consider what's visible from a road or a byway, and it could be argued that the chimney as it existed was minimally visible. However, chimneys are extremely relevant historical aspects of antique houses, just like windows and doors. Windows are the eyes of the house, and chimneys, you can characterize it any way you want to, but they're very historically important. So we are empowered as a committee to deny applications when we feel that the loss of a historically relevant and/or significant element of a building would be detrimental to the public interest. Now, obviously, from hearing both sides of this issue tonight, the question of whether or not the removal of the chimney constitutes a detriment to the public interest is open to debate. But some of the arguments, in my view, about the removal of the chimney not being detrimental to the public interest do not involve its historical significance. This committee is seated to evaluate historical significance. We're not seated to evaluate peripheral considerations, as not that we don't feel them or that we're not sympathetic to them, but considerations of generational differences, whether people can afford to live on the Cape. Yes, those are real issues, but they're not issues that bear on our decisions. So the decision in front of this committee tonight is to, in my judgment, is to evaluate whether that chimney, as it existed, is of sufficient historical significance so that its loss constitutes a detriment to the public interest. That's what I believe we're here to consider.
Right.
So having said that, I would invite other members of the committee to comment. I think we've heard from the public. And so before we entertain a motion, I think this is an important decision. We need to take our time with it. We need to consider carefully. So let's talk about it some more.
Yeah, I think
And
well
how
we
we
have.
feel.
Yeah, I think we have to consider the fact that we've already voted on this.
It's a brand-new application.
Yeah, and I don't feel
So-
anything has changed for me, so I am back to denying the demolition, which is what I came down to when we heard it in February, I guess.
So if we deny it, then I think that was what that Councilor Wilson was suggesting. If you get a clear denial from us, you get your application in to appeal within the 10 days, you can appeal our decision.
Right.
Right? No? That's,
It's not how I heard it. I heard that because we had done a certificate of appropriateness the first time, which wasn't the right way to do it.
Right,
Yeah.
okay.
That was
The
denied.
bathroom windows. It was paired with other things they wanted to.
Oh, right, so we had to do.
And that was denied.
Yep.
And we hadn't really used a certificate of demolition. And in Attorney James Wilson's words, he said there's an unlimited amount of times you can pursue that. We don't plan on exhausting that. I'm just saying, and so we hadn't done that. And I think based on these circumstances, I don't want to exasperate us all. I regret the fact that we're already spending all this much time on this, but I think it's important that we get it right. And I think
I agree
everyone in
with
the room
that.
would say the same thing. So I think the way I view this is that it's a fresh new application, certificate of demolition, and we're asking for a straight vote on that.
That's well said, and I think accurate. It was pointed out at the previous meeting that really the certificate for appropriateness and a demolition request should not have been conflated.
Right.
Those should have been
Separate.
right.
So now we're doing it properly, and so we can consider everything that's happened regarding the previous application to be now moot. We're dealing with a brand-new application, and we're going to rule on it tonight. So,
Shall I make a motion?
I'd like to just make one statement, which is I know Jesse and Jeannie. I've known them for 10 years. We bid on the same house together, and we've watched them raise their kids, and I think they're a fabulous family. We went to a site visit at their home on Friday. I think Jesse's doing an incredible job fixing up the home. However, given the fact that it is on Captain's Mile, one of 6 houses with an L with a second chimney, I think historically it was a mistake to take it down.
It is down.
Right.
I just said I think it was a mistake to take it down.
I think it would.
I agree it was a mistake to take it down.
okay, so
I don't understand. I don't understand.
don't be frustrated. Speak now or forever hold your peace.
Bob, can I ask you a good question?
Already down.
Do you still stand behind your comments that you made at the February 12th meeting after our site visit? That you clearly said that the chimney, the fireplace and the chimney were non-original and had been severely altered.
We've already covered that.
Yeah, that's our,
It's not relevant. I mean, no, the chimney as it existed was not the original chimney.
Okay.
That's clear.
Not clarified. Okay.
That's clear for the benefit of you who don't, the benefit of those of you who don't know what I'm talking about. There have been several visits to this property, and during at least 2 of the visits, there was an effort made to examine the ceiling in the attic ceiling, to determine whether or not the chimney had been moved to its location before it was removed. And it's clear that it has been moved. So from that standpoint, it's not original, but that's not the defining. Original is not the only consideration. It could be historically significant and not original, and we would still judge it as we could still judge it as important enough so that its removal would be contrary to the public interest. So I'm just trying to frame this thing as objectively as I can and as unemotionally as I can, because obviously there is a lot of people invested in this from an emotional perspective, and we should not. This body should not be looking at it from that perspective. We're trying to be objective, and making an effort to make a proper decision based on our charge as defined in the Act. Okay, so.
You ready for
So I just have one thing to say, Jesse. Do you have any intention of rebuilding a chimney so it has a chimney, even if it's non-functioning? Is that part of your plan?
The one comment I'd make, in order to modernize this house, which it severely needs, which it doesn't make sense to put a chimney back in that house, either functioning or non-functioning. And so, because you can't fit it, you can't put it, you've been to the house, you can't put a full bath upstairs. You couldn't have a normal sized kitchen. And you know what happens to the majority of these homes that are needing this amount of work is they tear the whole back of the house off. And then they end up rebuilding it, the L. And that's what's happened to several of the recent historic homes that need complete renovation. That's what's happened. I'm trying to very carefully not change the envelope of this house at all. And
Okay,
so it doesn't make any sense to do
If
that.
this thing is denied tonight, says you cannot take down the chimney, which is already on the ground, what are you going to do?
I mean, I'm going to pursue a way of sticking a chimney up through the attic to go.
That was just what I just asked you.
Okay.
Would that be in your plans to do? It would have to be if you're
I
denied.
mean, I don't have a choice. I'm willing to humbly submit to the board's,
Right. Normally, when we ask, if someone is applying for a demolition, we get caught in this catch-22 almost every time. But the next application is for construction. So we allow the demolition based on the fact that the person is telling us they're going to do this, they're going to construct something in its place. And then we move on to that. So the argument goes, maybe it should be the other way around.
John,
maybe we should approve it first.
Make my point. We're not doing any major. We're restoring. We're preserving and restoring.
I understand that.
And this is the one relatively small part of the house that we think needs to come down for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think that should be taken into consideration. But I understand how that's hard to do that given the circumstances. But I think that's a tension we're feeling in this room too. Of in order to embark on restoring this home within its envelope, there has to be some reasonable give and take. And this is the one area that we're asking for that to happen, which I think is reasonable, especially considering the pattern of how the board has interacted with homes of this vintage needing this amount of work. The board has allowed major construction on all these older homes on 6A in the Captain's Mile within the last several months.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was just about to address that myself. Comment made earlier about the inconsistencies that on rulings of this committee, and that's certainly true. We have not always been consistent. First of all, when I refer to we, the composition of this committee, because we are volunteers, changes, and it changes sometimes fairly frequently. So you get different opinions based on who's sitting on this side of the table. Also, and I've said this before, but it bears repeating, I believe, we are not governed by mistakes that have been made in the past. And some of the examples that you've referenced, Jesse, in your application were mistakes. And I could certainly get into that, but I think, and it's a blanket statement, if we make a mistake, we're not compelled to repeat it.
I totally understand, I agree with that, but I think there needs to be an acknowledgement that, and this gets back to your question, John, the reason we're feeling singled out somewhat is that the clear pattern has been allowing major exterior changes to the silhouette and profile of historic homes if they need the amount of work this house needs. And we're not doing any of that. We're asking for one change.
Right. You see, I know exactly what you're talking about, and well, we were misled. Okay? People lie to us regularly here. And they go right ahead and go out and do whatever they want to their house. And we had a couple come in who built a house that was 6 feet taller than it was supposed to be. And the building department told us that we should make them take, this board, should make them take the 6 feet off the top of the house. We're not going to do that. But it was within our power, according to the building department.
Right, but the energy in the room will continue then, is what we're saying, because we're coming to you saying, we are not being unreasonable at this house. And our generation is asking you, how can we meet in the middle? Because we can't afford to live here and renovate houses at the at the cost that the previous generation did it.
You think I can afford to live here?
Well,
All right.
I think, yeah.
If you want to put cedar
I'm
roofs.
75 years
Yeah.
old. I could just barely afford to live here. The generation thing, I'm not buying.
Work together and find some consensus. That's the.
Yeah, well, okay. You should volunteer on the board.
Jeannie, we've gone over that, and I've expressed my opinion on it. We're sympathetic to that issue, but it's not our issue. It's not our purview. It's not why we're seated here. We're seated here to evaluate your application for the removal of that chimney and whether or not we're going to approve that application or deny it. It's just that simple. So, that's where my focus is. I'm determined to try to remain focused on just that issue because I think it's the only relevant issue here.
Are you calling for a vote?
I'm calling for a motion.
A motion.
I move that we deny the application to remove to remove a rear chimney. 24-D002. Deny 24-D002.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor of voting to deny this application, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Can I ask you a question? Should we amend the motion to talk about rebuilding or make this?
I wouldn't at this point.
Okay. Then okay, sorry.
So, all in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Abstain.
Aye.
And aye. Thank you all. It was very lively, and as I like to say, it was excellent exercise in
Can I say one
community activism.
Thank you all for your time and attention. Sorry for the way this took so much. Sorry for the people in the room as well.
Yeah,
I feel like this was a much better meeting than the last one. So
I want to apologize to number 5 and 6 who have been patiently waiting.
Number 5 and 6? Oh.
I love your house. 405 is a beauty. Oh, well, no.
I can't imagine all these names on Zoom.
Okay.
There they go. They're all going home.
Yeah.
Can't afford to live in Boston. It's a lot cheaper.
Okay. Could have been worse.
Last another hour.
Package store's still open.
Thank God for that.
Okay.
You know,
I can't give you anything to sign.
I just
Here,
feel
you
like
want
there's
to
no
sign here for
winners
fun?
here.
Yeah, I lived through the Hagopian application. Autobiography. Had he presented the argument that he presented. It's one change and I'll leave
Next.
the whole thing. He's still standing. I think he might have got a better hearing.
Because
Should be two.
Said I'm going to keep the footprint and do all this and that and bring it up.
Okay, we have now reached the anticlimactic portion of the evening. And we'll hear the next application, which is 24-A055. It's to replace a roof with CertainTeed slate gray and paint the front door to match existing shutters at 7 Christopher Hall Way. Bill and Joan Simpson are the owners, and Keith Gilmore Enterprises is the agent, and you are.
I am Keith Gilmore. I'm here to
Great,
represent
Keith.
Bill and Joan Simpson
Tell
on
us.
this project. I want to clarify on the description of the application here. The front door we actually are replacing as well, not just painting. So the front door, although it, we are replacing it, it's going to be like for like style. It's a 2 light at the top, 6-panel style colonial wood door that's going to be replaced with a Therma-Tru fiberglass door. So it'll have the same character as the door that's there.
The light at the top?
Yeah, matter of fact, the bullseye glass that is in the wood door right now, I am going to cut out of the door and custom fabricate it into the new fiberglass door.
Great.
And the door will then be painted to match the existing shutters, which is like basically kind of like a barn red color, like the photograph shows. Application.
We trust you.
Yeah.
Okay.
The roof that's there now, the architectural asphalt is going to be replaced with like shingle, a slate gray. The rear slope of the home has solar panels on it that are going to be removed from that company in order for us to put on a rubber roof system on the rear, on the low pitch section where those panels are. Beyond that, we're replacing the rake boards along the roof lines with, AZEK PVC.
Okay.
That basically is the whole project in a nutshell.
Questions or comments from the committee?
Sure. The existing roof, that's also asphalt shingle? It's not cedar, right?
Correct, yeah, it's architectural asphalt, yeah.
Is there a significant difference in color of the new roof as for?
No, it's just age.
Okay.
No, the slate gray kind of has a little bit of a, it's gray with kind of red speckles in it. So it kind of gives it kind of looks nice with the shutter color. And I believe that's what was there, that's there now. It's just, aged, so.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Yes, you're replacing the front door. Are you also replacing the storm door, or is it you're going to reuse the existing storm? Because it looked pretty new.
I believe the storm, let me look at my paperwork. I think that we,
Says aluminum white, so
I don't know if that's
leads me
existing
to
or
believe
if
you're
you're replacing it.
replacing.
okay, we are replacing, I have down here, we're putting in a new Anderson white full view.
Okay.
So it'll be white aluminum, so it'll be a full view Anderson storm door.
Similar to what's there now.
Yeah, thank you for asking that.
And on the rear roof, you said is a lower pitch, where you're putting the rubber membrane roof. Do you know what the pitch
membrane,
is
yeah.
there on that part of the roof?
Right, yes.
What's the pitch there?
Oh, the pitch on the rear.
When you're putting the rubber membrane, like a 3 pitch or something?
Yeah, it's 2 or under, so it's
how does
quite a low pitch.
So how does
The
the roof come down?
transitions.
It looks like a,
Well, it transitions. There's a upper section of the rear that's about 4 feet that will be asphalt, but where it transitions to the
it's a lower
pitch,
transition, lower
to the
pitch.
rubber
It's
membrane.
like over a deck or something?
No, it was a addition put on some time ago, and so it graduated out the pitch, and being that the solar panels that are there now that are going to be taken off in order to do this project, they cover the majority of that section of roof, and it's actively leaking. It's been leaking for some time now, and due to, I think, where the panels are mounted. So that's the choice to go to a rubber roof, is because it's going to be I think a better install seal with the brackets they use for those things and all that, so. And the pitch of it as well.
I'm curious, this has nothing to do with your application, but I'm curious,
Yeah.
who pays to take the panels off? The solar company or you?
No, it's expensive, and it's the owner's,
I've done it numbers of times.
yeah,
It's part of having
it's
solar
not cheap.
panels.
but it needs to be done.
Okay.
Okay.
Questions or comments otherwise? And I don't see any members of the public here and no one online, so I will entertain a motion.
Move to approve 24-A055.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And aye. So Keith, if you would sign this document, which, as you know by now, if you've been paying attention, simply means if you're going to make any changes, you'll let us know.
Of course.
Don't you wish you
Great.
had more, like, people getting up and talking and asking you questions and stuff?
Well, my seat was warm. Oh, I really did clear up the room. Unless you're on your own for the last one. That last one, was interesting, though. Question about being a contractor, how you build masonry chimney with masonry support underneath it. I guess that's going to require some engineering.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's why he's very enthused.
Thank you, have a good night.
Good night. Okay. So, the last application of the evening is 24-A056, is to paint house and shutters at 120 Pine Street. Stanley Farrow is the owner, and is he online?
Pat Duffy. Hand is raised.
Okay.
Here they are. Unmute, Pat.
Are you here to present this application, Pat?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
We just have a new addition put on the back of the house, and we would like to change all the clapboards on the house to match, since the new section's unpainted. And now's the time to change the color.
Okay.
So are you planning to replace all the clapboards on the front of the house or just paint them?
Just paint them.
Good thing.
Does anybody have the real chips?
I've got chips.
Oh, you've got chips.
Yeah, they're not much different. No.
Usually they're a lot different, but these aren't. Not my choice.
Okay. Everyone had a chance to see the colors and, all right. Any questions or comments?
Shutters.
Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Crazy about the colors, but that's not my job.
Well, yeah.
Move. Yes? I said I'm not crazy about the colors, but that's not my job. Move to approve 24-A056.
It is your job, actually.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of approving this application signify by saying aye.
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 And aye. You're all set, and if
Thank
you
you.
come in and you can get your approval from our office administrator, Lisa Grady.
Lisa Grady?
All right, thank you.
Lisa Sherman. God.
Lisa Brady.
Talk about Freudian slip. That was a good one. I made two tonight.
What was the other one?
I've forgotten something about using the word committee instead of.
Happens to be the town moderator. He's got these horrible colours to match him, and he puts down that reddish mulch because he thinks it goes well. And I'm thinking, you must be colourblind.
Oh, dear.
Yeah.
It's a statement.
It certainly is.
I don't understand. I don't understand how you vote on a demolition thing when the thing is sitting in the back. You're voting retroactively?
Okay, so.
But it has happened. That doesn't make sense to me.
It's just legal stuff.
Okay, we need to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the April 22nd, 2024 minutes.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, so the next meeting is Wednesday, May 29th, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
And I can't be here Wednesday.
adjourn.
Just note to everybody.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And aye, we are adjourned.